Welcome. I'm Peggy. Thank you for letting us share a part of your day. And I have a person here I've come to know and admire and respect, and I'm so glad she has time to come and be with us today. Carolyn McIntyre is here, and she's here on behalf of Chautauqua. And these are wonderful events that are free to the families all over. Anybody can go. And if you have children, it's a learning experience. And I'm so glad to have you here.
Well, thank you for
inviting me. And I'm getting excited because I love Chautauqua.
We do too. Chautauqua was put on by the people of Greenville and the upstate, so a lot of people are very excited about what we bring to
now
our
you're
area.
Celebrating a special year.
Yeah, it's 20 years, and there are people that were in the audience 20 years ago that have been coming for 20 years. Most of the people that are involved, the major volunteers and like that, have been around for 20 years. It's really terrific.
And you have, each year you branch out and do historical figures that it's a learning experience for children as well.
It's a chance to step back into history and go one-on-one with people that created our nation and our world. It's more than a performance. It's more than history. It's really a chance to be a part of history, to feel that you are actually in the room with famous people.
Now, you've done this for 20 years.
Yes.
This is a big celebration this year, really.
We just keep doing what we're doing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We started out with 15 people in the audience. Last year, our festival had, I think we had over 13,000 people that came through our various events throughout the year. 30 free shows in June and shows all the way from January through
June. And what I
June.
love about this, one thing is that they're family friendly. Family friendly. The things you present.
These are stories. These are our stories. Yeah. These are the stories of your ancestors, my ancestors, us today, our kids. These are our stories. So when you bring the family, you get to experience those stories together. And you get to go home and talk about them and look things up. My favorite thing about our audience and what we do is that it doesn't stop at the end of the show when you clap. You go home and you turn on your computer, you start looking things up. You start reading books. You start saying, wow, I didn't know that. That's why it's important.
Now, this year, 20 years, what are you planning?
Well, we plan things a year and a half, 2 years in advance. We come up with a theme that we think is something that we would like to talk about. And then we come up with characters, historical figures from the people that have influenced the American culture that would exemplify this theme so that we can talk about things together, not just separately.
Well, Carolyn brought this little brochure and it says courage.
Right.
Is that your theme for
this
year?
That's our theme this year is courage. We felt that last year was the power of words. And this year we felt with what's going on in the world today, we need to talk about what courage is and meet some people that exemplifies what courage is.
All right.
And the fun part is picking only 5 out of all the ones you can have.
And some of them are women.
Quite honestly, we always feel that we need to have a female voice. So we always make sure there's at least some character we're doing the year that is a female. And this year, as we were throwing around names and we came up with who we wanted to meet and talk to, we ended up with 3 females on the roster.
Now, you got George Washington.
Yes, coming up in February. February 1st.
The father of our country, I believe he's been called.
And a fearless person. When you think about Washington in battle, here the guy is 6'4", which means he's bigger than anybody else in the room. He's riding on a white horse. He's a general. Everybody in the whole world is going to be shooting at him. He knows that. And so in spite of that, he was fearless in battle. He always led from the front. He always went out there first because he figured he was going to get shot anyway. They're gonna see him no matter where he is. There's no place for him to hide. And so that fearlessness, that courage in battle is really what made all of the fathers say, let's let him lead the country because we know what he did on the battlefield.
Yeah. So they knew that they could put him in the head position to found the United States of America.
And he had no more interest in doing that. He just knew that when they looked around, he was the biggest guy in the room, and he had to say yes. I truly believe the most courageous thing he ever did is after 2 terms, he stepped down. That took courage. That took the example of saying, no, we do not want a dynasty. We do not want people to have power forever. His decision to go home to Mount Vernon took more courage than anything he did on the battlefield.
I never thought of it that way. But we had the founding people for this country. If you think about it, it's enormous. It's almost like God planned this. And don't laugh at me, but when you think about the people that were there.
Well, he planned the whole thing all over the place, so that's part of what he planned, I'm sure.
So we brought about freedom for everybody, equality, the things that this country has stood for since its beginning. It's unique.
We look at how we were founded. One of the things about courage is that you cannot be courageous unless you're afraid. That fear is what drives courage. All the people that are coming this year had doubts, had fears, some, fear that's just immobilizing. Washington was not on the battlefield unafraid.
No.
But he was courageous because he could use that fear, overcome that fear, and get done what needed to be done, knowing that he is an individual, and all the people that are coming this year. Look deep inside of yourself, even no matter how afraid you are, and draw up that sense of courage. Not everybody can do that.
No. All right, now let's talk about Chautauqua that's coming up. You've celebrated 20 years, and each year it's gotten bigger and better. And all of these programs are free and open to the public. And I think that's a powerful gift. And you can come, you could bring your school children. I mean, it's a fun thing to do. And
it's coming up February 1st through the 4th.
All right.
Last
now that's
year,
the first thing you're doing this year. The 1st through the 4th of February is what?
It's George Washington.
Okay.
And the person that is portraying George Washington is Ron Carnegie from Colonial Williamsburg.
Oh, my.
He has been a historical interpreter for 40 years. He's been doing George Washington and Colonial Williamsburg for 10 or 12 years. One of my friends was up in Colonial Williamsburg just fairly within the last month. And she saw Ron Carnegie there as Washington. And what she said was, when Ron Carnegie is George Washington and you're in the room with him, you feel like you are one of the founding fathers. That's what Chautauqua does, is it empowers you to feel like you're there and you're one of the people that have something to say.
Okay, now, Carolyn, where are you going to have these programs? We've already said people can come, you don't pay anything, but you better get there early. Now, where and when exactly are we able to do this?
Okay, we're going to be at Wade Hampton High School. It's a large auditorium, seats a lot of people. We turned people away last year, so we've expanded. But on Saturday and Sunday at 2 o'clock, February 3rd and February 4th, come to Wade Hampton High School. We'll be in the large auditorium, and George Washington will be there. It's a free show. As Peggy said, come early because we do sometimes run out of seats. Yeah. But what we did this year is that we have expanded to a third show. We will be in Spartanburg on Thursday, February 1st. It's at 7 o'clock at the headquarters library, and you will be able to, you don't have to drive from Spartanburg to come to Greenville. You can see it there. So February 1st, 7 o'clock.
That's Spartanburg.
Spartanburg headquarters library.
Okay.
And then Saturday and Sunday, it's a 2 o'clock show. We promise you will get home for the Super Bowl. It does not conflict with the Super Bowl, but if you want to ignore and get out, you can come to our show too. But we are always over before the Super Bowl starts.
Yeah. And you want people to come as families. You want them to bring their school children, school-age children.
I want anybody who wants to come, but I think it's particularly wonderful because you're going to go home and look things up. You're going to talk about it to your friends. And when you do that with your children and grandchildren, particularly grandparents and grandchildren, really get a lot to talk about after this because you've been a part of it. You've gotten up to stand up and ask a question. And these performers are so understand their characters so well.
Okay, so the man who's going to be George Washington is coming from Colonial Williamsburg.
Yes.
But there will be other people who are local, is that correct? In some of these shows?
We have some people that are local performers that are nationally known historical characters.
All right.
People, performers. For example, Larry Bounds will be Winston Churchill in June.
He's wonderful.
But Larry will, when he's not teaching at Wade Hampton High School, he goes to the various different places. He goes nationally and performs nationally, even though he's our local treasure.
Yeah.
And the same with Becky Stone, who lives not too far away up in North Carolina. She also travels all over the nation performing as her characters. So we are blessed down here to have a couple of the finest historical performers that live in our area.
And you're already planning in the future. This year, courage. And who's to be, let's talk about this a minute. Courage is your theme for this year. And you have all these different performances that are free and open to the public. And there'll be others. There's somebody else besides George Washington.
Yeah.
That's what
In June, we have 5 other characters. 5 other historical people that were courageous. The first one we just mentioned was Winston Churchill. Now, you may have seen him in the movies a lot lately. He's not going to look like that, but you're going to be able to talk to him, and you can see him smoke his cigar in front of you. So he will be right there with you. We also have 4 other people that we think are incredibly brave. 2 of which are, actually 3 are South Carolina stories. Frances Marion, the Swamp Fox.
Yeah.
At sometimes the only person fighting in the entire South was this one man with a ragtag band of black and white militia going out and still fighting when nobody else was here. An incredible story. And it's not, if you saw The Patriot and Mel Gibson, that's not the story.
No.
It's close, it's part of it. But he will be here and he will talk about what it was like to be the only people still fighting until they came down to help. See, he's an amazing story.
Okay.
The other amazing South Carolina story is Harriet Tubman. We know a lot about Harriet freeing people and going up north and following the drinking gourd. But we don't realize that she actually was in the Union Army. She was down in Beaufort. She was the one that when all of the slaves that escaped, they came to the Army. The Army wouldn't let them fight in the Army, but she organized them into the cleaning squads, the washing squads, the cooking squads, and then she went out.
She was a heroine herself.
She actually went out on the
so we have Harriet Tubman and Winston Churchill and Frances Marion, right from South Carolina. And what about, and we have to go to a break, but Alice Paul?
Alice Paul and Clara Barton. Clara Barton is another South Carolina story. Hilton Head Island would not exist if Clara Barton had not brought her Red Cross down here. It would be a dead island. And Alice Paul is the iron-jawed angel that when women were looking for the right to vote in the 1920s, she and her people were jailed, force-fed, beaten, and she is the one who put the ERA in front of the Congress back in 1920. And we're still trying to get the equal rights amendments through.
Well, we have to go to a break, but we can certainly take a moment and thank God for the people who were there before us, who gave us the vision to be free Americans. We'll be right back.